You have said it. I have said it. Almost every woman I know has said it at some point. And that is, I am not creative. And then we go right back to color coding our planners and redecorating our porches and finding the exact right way to plate the thing that we just made for dinner. But sure, we're not creative. This week I sat down with Lesley Andrew, an artist and art therapist from Leeds, England, and she completely reframed what creativity is actually for. It was never about talent. It's not about the finished product. It's about expression. And more specifically, it's about your nervous system and what happens when you finally stop performing long enough to just make something with no stakes attached to it. She also said something I have not been able to let go of. If you are pushing down your sadness and your anger, you are also pushing down your joy and your gratitude. It is all of it or none of it. You do not get to pick. This conversation is going to stay with you. Let's get to it. My friend, not broken, disconnected. That's what I keep coming back to, because most of us are walking through life thinking that we need to fix ourselves, do more, be better, when really we've just gotten disconnected from who we are. Welcome to Mindset Medicine. I am Dr. Tanya B, speaker, mindset strategist, and someone who believes that real change happens when we bring together science, soul, somatics, and a dash of hippie woo. This podcast is all about coming back to yourself, about learning how to know yourself, trust yourself, align your life, and lead with confidence, integrity, and real power. Some weeks, it's just you and me, diving into mindset shifts, nervous system work, and the patterns that keep us stuck in overthinking, overfunctioning, and burnout. Other weeks, I'm sitting down with people who are doing something just a little bit better than we are, whether that is leadership, parenting, money, health, or just how they're showing up in their lives. Not because they have it all figured out, but because they have found something that works, and we get to learn from that. So if you have been feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or like you are doing everything right, but something still feels off, my friend, you are in the right place. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mindset Medicine with Dr. Tanya B. I have a fun guest with me today. I think this will be an interesting conversation and I am imagining some just fun and great giveaways. So with us today, we have Lesley Andrew. She is an artist and an art therapist. Thank you, Lesley, so much for being here. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. And
You bet.
yeah, like
So,
you're saying about it being fun, like does bring a bit light to it.
Always,
So
always.
yeah.
There's not much that I do that I'm not laughing about, even when it's not worth laughing about. That's just my approach to life. So obviously the first thing that I can hear is that there's an accent that is not my accent. And so tell us where you're at in the world.
So I'm in the UK, in the north of England, in Leeds, which is in Yorkshire. So that's where the accent is. And pretty much, I suppose it's like everywhere in the world, people would recognise the differences.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I love it. It sounds amazing. So it was a little bit interesting getting this schedule just because our timing is definitely not the same, but I'm so glad that we were able to work it out.
Yeah, it's all good.
So perfect. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are? What do you do? What led you to?
So as your lovely intro, I'm an artist and art therapist, and bringing different things about creativity in to help people to express themselves and help people to improve their mental health using creativity. Now, I've always loved art, and art's always been part of my life, and I think it always will. And I used to be an art teacher and then trained to do art therapy after that. So I did about 11 years doing art teaching.
Like K-12 art teacher, like elementary or middle or high school?
Yeah, sort of ages 11 to 18.
Okay. I bet that was a good time.
I think saying the ages maybe matches better because I get so mixed up with the different education systems. So I suppose part of the idea with that is that just helping people to make art and, build their skills and build all of those like techniques and materials, And then
Mhm.
it hit me that actually I need art for my own therapeutic benefit, and
Mhm.
I felt that I cared more about the young people's mental health and their well-being than about what grades they got. So it felt like a natural thing for me to go and study
Mhm.
art therapy, especially
Mhm.
after I recommended it to a lot of people who were doing art and psychology. I'd go, "Yeah, you could do art therapy," and it hadn't hit me for a long time. Um, but yeah, so I've never really looked back, but then I think more so now, I'm really on a mission to help people that to express themselves
Mhm.
regardless of what their background is, regardless of what
Right.
their age, regardless of their labels, because so many
Mhm.
people find it hard to express their truth,
Mhm.
and creativity is a really good way of doing that.
Yeah. And I think too, talent, right? Like talent or skill, if we feel like we don't have something, then this isn't a thing we should do or practice or play with because it doesn't turn out the way that we're thinking. Not
Mm.
recognizing that you don't have to be perfect. It's very much like most coping skills or coping mechanisms. You just get what you want to get from it. And that's all that's really important, right?
Yeah, that's true. I talk to so many people who say that they're just not very creative or
Hmm.
they don't have the art skills, and so they don't think it's for them. But then one of my key messages is that it's not about what it looks like or
Hmm.
kind of having those perfect skills. It's about the expression, and I probably say the word expression about 50,000 times in this conversation. But it's about
It's true.
playing, and
Yeah.
it's about
Yeah.
experimenting with materials, and it's about
Hmm.
using art in different ways, as well as different other things that are creative, like poetry or dance and music
Hmm.
and problem solving. That
Hmm.
Yeah, sometimes people don't think they're very creative, but actually they might be really into cooking or something and
Yeah,
other
I can think
yeah.
of I think there's a direct correlation to like nervous system regulation, which is the thing that I'm always talking about. So yeah, it doesn't matter that and people that have listened to this podcast for a while have heard me tell the stories about the art that
Uh,
happens in my house because I have my husband is a fantastic artist and my kids, all three of our boys, are also really good artists. I, however, am not, but I love our like painting dates or the things that we're doing to create together. And there was at one point our youngest was still living at home and my husband and I were like, let's just paint tonight. Like, this is the thing we're going to do. So we're sitting at the table painting and our son walked in the door and he was like, Dad, that's so great. And his dad are always like sunset, beachy kinds of landscapes. That's his jam, anything ocean related. And Trey was like, Dad, that's so good. I love it. And he came around and saw mine, which was supposed to be like mountains with a stream going up the middle. And it didn't really look like that. And he was like, oh, wow. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not hanging it up. I'm not doing anything with it. I'm going to paint over it and
mm,
starting it on the same canvas. But I enjoyed the time with my husband. I enjoyed the like cerebralness of the painting and what that does in terms of, calming me down and just making me not have to worry for a couple of minutes or live in anxiety or burnout. Like, I'm
mm,
breathing and I'm enjoying this moment. And I think there's so much to be said for that.
yeah. Oh, I'm glad you could do that, and it's so true, isn't it, that I think, it sounds like you had it's a really joyful connecting moment with your son at
Mhm.
that time, that there is a playfulness about it, whereas a lot of people avoid making something because they do worry about judgment, and they worry about putting their art
Yes.
online, for instance, and
Yep.
sharing their images with people. And this is where there's maybe that difference between somebody that's taking part and, having art therapy as that mental health treatment,
Mhm.
and somebody that's using art, they're being an artist and they're saying, "Hey, this is a piece of my art, and if you
Mhm.
like it on the wall, then, you can have it," sort
Yeah.
of thing. There's a
Yeah.
difference there. And often people would be understanding the process, but still then look at it and go, "Oh," sometimes I've had people that thrown away artwork or that have painted
Mhm.
over images, like you said,
Mhm.
because it is purely about, like, that mixture of that nervous system regulation of
Mhm.
whether it's calming them down or
Mhm.
feeling more energized, and being able to get something out, like that cathartic release, that real
Mhm.
embodied. kind of images, and I
Mm,
think that's where
yeah.
it can be really challenging, because sometimes things come up that are unexpected that
Yeah.
can be
There are
quite
2
painful
things
at
that came
times.
up there that I wanna dig into. I think the first one, because it's easier, is the non-judgment, right? Like,
Mm,
we have to not take ourselves so seriously. I used to teach, like, dance fitness classes, and I can't s also sing to save my life, and I have a musician in one of my kids that he is a fantastic musician, he's a really great singer. I don't I'm not going to be that, and that's okay. But I used to end every one of these dance classes by singing as loudly and as obnoxiously as I could for the crowd, and they loved it. It's
I
been
love it.
15 years since I've done that, and people still come up and be like, "Remember when you sing that song to us?" "Yeah, I remember. Want me to do it right now?" Like, what does it matter? I'm not trying to, like, do anything, but they're getting a little bit of entertainment. I think that it's funny for a minute. Like, we don't have to take things so seriously, and when you do that, you get to step into the next level, right? So
Mm,
that's where because I'm sitting there and I'm painting and I'm not worried about the outcome. I'm not monetizing this. I don't care what it looks like. I'm enjoying the moment. I'm enjoying the connection. I'm enjoying the comedy relief that's happening around it. I remember one time at a wine and design, is that a thing that happens in your
yeah, they
area?
have things like
So
that, like,
yeah,
you
I
know.
love that. And it's something I've done. And I remember sitting at a table and it was sort of at a fancy restaurant. And so there was a table of like 8 of us, and somebody across the table who I didn't know was going, "Oh my gosh, I'm struggling. I can't get it right." And I was like, "Mine is beautiful. It's so amazing." And I'm going on like super confident, like it's this work of art, like Picasso has done this for me. And they came around and looked at it and went, "Oh," and I was like, "I know." Because it doesn't matter. I might put it in the kitchen for a minute, but it's not staying there, and it's really just for entertainment purposes. So I think
Yeah,
that's really a key, right? Like, is to let go of judgment, because when you do that, you get more comfortable with yourself and you get to start moving into the sort of next layer of who you are and what you do and how you
yeah.
approach life.
Yeah. It makes me think, like, when you were saying about the singing, I mean, I can't sing, but I enjoy singing. And,
Yep.
yeah, I do the same, and I'd be happy to go and do karaoke and things, and like, I'm not trying to be a pop star, but I'm happy
Yeah.
to do it. And the same as, like, I'll go out for a walk, or I used to do a lot of running, but not as much
Mhm.
anymore. And I'm not expecting to go to the Olympics, but I'll still go and do it because I
Sure.
enjoy it,
I'm getting
because
something
I know
from
it's
it.
good for me.
Mhm.
But there's so many things that we, as adults, and I don't know whether, like, you notice this with your children. I don't have any children, but, like, I don't know whether you notice a difference in their recreational stuff as they've got older,
Mhm.
because sometimes, like, certainly for adults, we might be just very keen to do everything. We have loads and loads of hobbies when we're kids, and then as adults
Mhm.
we sort of go, I can only do that if I'm good at it. We
Mhm.
stop kind of doing it just for fun. But then
Right.
when we
Right.
allow ourselves to do it for fun, then it's maybe like having a bit of a healthy striving. So that balance between
Mhm.
enjoying improving and enjoying building those skills,
Mm.
whilst also
Yes.
going, it doesn't matter
Yep.
if it's
It's like putting
messy.
a puzzle together, building
Yeah,
Legos. It doesn't matter what is the outcome. You're just doing something.
yeah.
Yeah.
And painting, if you're painting, say, something that making something ugly on purpose, for instance, that makes me think of bellowing out a really, like a note on your singing. I used to have, like, this
Right.
inflatable microphone somewhere, like people buy, and I don't know where it's gone, but bellowing out this thing like, "Ah!" And actually,
Yeah.
it's kind of doing that, knowing that it
Yeah.
doesn't sound great. But
Yeah.
if I was doing it really, kind of being really trying to get a spot on note, and it didn't go according to plan, then I might feel a lot of frustration or
Mhm.
disappointment. And the same goes for, like, people that I work with who really trying and really enduring something to get something to look a certain way. And
Mhm.
actually, me telling them that it doesn't matter what it looks like can feel a bit invalidating for them. So helping them out technically at those times that's a
Mhm.
shift that I've come to realize and come to be able to do more, because
Mhm.
when I changed from art teaching to art therapy, I was really mindful of what's not therapy and what's education. But
Mhm.
now it's just all a mix. It's just we
Right.
do what we need to do
Yep.
and help people to process the frustrations that if they're not
Yeah.
able and that disappointment of something, whilst
Yeah.
also going, "Yeah, it's okay if you do make a mistake, but
Yeah.
then let's not call them mistakes. Let's say it's like,
Learning opportunities.
yeah, yeah, or it didn't go according to plan rather than it went
Mhm.
wrong."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that, and I think that too, by adding some skill creates value, right? So
Yeah.
it's not just I came in and because I could do that in my backyard, right? Like I could throw paint on something and then move on. But by learning something, I think it does create value. But I think too, the other point that I was making, or was thinking about going back to earlier, that you also started to come into here, is when you're working within art therapy, there's a purpose, there's a goal, or there's something that we're doing or healing or working through. So I'm
Mm.
just really curious about that process and what that can look like for people.
Yeah. So everybody, like people sometimes have a specific goal that they're wanting to work on that they're maybe, or they might feel that there's a difficulty with something. It might be that they're feeling certain emotions that are challenging for them. They might feel held back in certain areas of their life. But then actually what sometimes emerges is maybe less of the what's going on in the moment and more maybe
Mhm,
things from the past that have been
mhm,
patterns that they've been holding on to for a long time, or maybe things that are more cultural and more systemic that they've maybe been empathic to in others but not
mhm,
been able to put anywhere. So say if somebody was coming to me and they were like really struggling with anxiety, they were feeling really anxious, and that maybe affected their confidence to go out and meet people or go and do activities that they'd like, then a lot of that is down to feeling scared, that fear of the unknown, which we are, that is so common,
mhm,
isn't it? So,
mhm,
like, the unknown's not easy. So, part of that might be about helping them to build that resilience and test out things in the art making process. So this links back to that judgment, links back to striving for more or striving for things. And there's certain materials that can be used that either can be really easy to control, like there's a lot of control maybe in a pencil, for instance. And then the opposite side of that would be maybe inks and like dilute paints. So for somebody that's really struggling with anxiety and that maybe not feel safe for me to encourage them to pour paint all over the place and really get messy, that would be too much for them. It wouldn't feel right.
Yeah.
They they might lean towards other materials like pastels and like crayons, and
Mhm,
then over time they're building up that tolerance of frustration. So it's a bit of distress tolerance
mhm,
where certain things might smudge not according to plan. They might
mhm,
press on really hard one minute and then softer the next, and then it might not feel even for them. They might want it to be more even, and they're then thinking, do I do something to adjust that? Or do I tolerate it being like that? And is there something I can learn about myself that's within
mhm,
that? And the
mhm,
same goes for things like how the sensory experience is. So, like using the fingers to smudge things, and some
mhm,
people really love getting like their hands messy and
mhm.
finger painting, and it can be really like um they can enjoy that because
Yeah.
it might remind them of a fun time when they were little, that a time when they did that. But other people, it might feel a bit triggering for them. And this
Mhm,
is where, like, being aware of past experiences and adversities and traumas comes in as well.
mhm,
So, like, getting to know somebody and, like, whether I'm just revealing something to them bit by bit or
mhm,
holding space for them to test out that boundary,
mhm.
which once they've explored that in the art therapy space, in that creative arena, they might then go, "Actually, you know what? I can go walk around my block.
Mhm.
I'll go to that new place or something," because they've tried
Yeah.
something different.
That
Feels
makes
like
so much sense to me. I never really thought like I've spent some time in this world and I get it, but I didn't really think about the fact that you're creating discomfort, right? And so by creating
mm,
discomfort, you're stretching those boundaries exactly like you were saying, which then is you can integrate and translate into real life, into those figuring out what are those patterns and what are the causes of those patterns so that you can create that translation so that you can then do different or be a little bit different moving forward. I just never really
yeah,
gave that. I didn't think through like what was actually happening here, and that's I just find that to be really interesting.
yeah, and everyone's comfort zone's different.
Mhm.
So for one person who's experiencing maybe severe mental health challenges, like really struggling to regulate their emotions, then something that, their window of tolerance, what they can cope with is a lot smaller. But then somebody else that is maybe more resilient, not necessarily having those sort of mental health challenges as such, but still something holding them back. They
Mhm.
might approach things in a way that feels safer from the start. So
Mhm.
their intention for the art making might not be about feeling calmer or regulating. It might be more about exploring something or putting out maybe a political statement or something, really expressing what matters to them, and
Mhm.
then through by doing that, they're able to maybe find the words to communicate that,
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
actually take action, so
I can imagine just a general unhappiness or not understanding like what is causing me to have this like feeling or pattern or whatever it is that I'm struggling with.
yeah.
So, how do you approach that with so if you have a new person that you're working with, how do you know where to start?
Well, yeah, I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
everyone's different, aren't they? And I think it's like, we tend to sometimes we have these blocks where we think that we don't know ourselves, or we think that we might not really know what's going on. But when we actually are given chance and informed and sort of help to pause, that's when we can really look within and go, what is it that's really bothering me? What is it that's frustrating me? Is it that I'm just thinking about, say, people who struggle with confidence levels,
Mhm.
that is it that they are lacking confidence, or is it that they're wanting wanting to have permission to just go for it? What's keeping them sort of where they currently
Mhm.
are? So there's loads of different things that influence like sort of attachment patterns and, yeah, just kind of beliefs and values that really have a big
Mhm.
impact. Um
Yeah.
Yeah, so many things, but sometimes the way that I work, well, I suppose this is what I said to you before, Tanya, about how bringing in sort of the more technical skills, that I'm really keen to encourage people to be making art and to be creative, and for it not to be only for people who maybe are struggling with the mental health, or only for people who are really creative. I'd say it's for everybody, in the same way that like people would encourage me to do something different as well.
Mhm.
And you know how like we do these things to be proactive about self-care and self-development and growth, and yet, more often than not, creativity is not in that mix. So,
Mhm.
how many people do journaling,
Mhm.
mindfulness, sound baths, maybe listening to audiobooks and podcasts and
Mhm.
cold showers? But are
Yep.
those same people exercise, like healthy eating, all of the, are those same people doing their 10 minutes of art every day? Or,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
bringing in normalizing that,
Mhm.
normalizing that, like, the way that we grow these things is by doing more of it,
I
like, a bit
love
like
that.
a muscle,
Yeah.
the way
So
that
I
you
do teach mindfulness and self-care to college students, and
yeah,
that is included in my model of self-care creativity is and it doesn't have to be art. It doesn't have to be anything specific, right? It gets to be you finding what is a creative outlet that makes a lot of sense to you. Like, do you like to bake? Do you like to play music? Do you like just you decide what that looks like and then you have find a way to express yourself through that. So
Yeah.
I do. I think it just might not be something you do every single day, but you have to figure out how do you get it within your like cycles of time so that you're getting it on a regular basis so that you are fulfilling that bucket of self-care. Because
Yeah.
I do think that's important.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
there's definitely something about scheduling it in and
Mhm.
prioritizing rather than waiting until you're inspired.
It's never gonna
Because
happen.
actually,
Or
yeah,
I like waiting until I just have some downtime to fit it in. My husband and I are very guilty of doing that. We say we're gonna do a date every week or every month, and then we're like, "Okay, where does that fit?" "Well, I'll see you in 3 months because it doesn't really fit."
yeah,
And so we have to be very just aware of that, and we put those kinds of things on our calendar so that we know that we are making time.
yeah. Which that's really good because for some people, like I was saying to you about how my day it's been really rainy and really wet outside,
Yeah.
and I've just been spending a lot of time painting, and
Mhm.
I keep going and painting and then leaving it to dry and then going back. But there's times when I might just do 5 minutes and that's
Mhm.
it, or I might do
Yeah.
something in my sketchbook, and,
Mhm.
yeah, and other times I might go for, like, weeks without really making anything,
Mhm.
but, yeah, that doesn't matter.
So I'm curious, when you are painting, is that always a creative outlet for you, or is it sometimes like work? It's something that you have to do for a purpose?
Ah, okay. So, I don't really feel it like work.
Yep.
It doesn't really particularly feel like work. It feels like I do a lot of workshops for like, with people as well, and, like, you know, like, people would come along and I'd help them, like, to be making something. So, in
Mhm.
that respect, there might be images that I would make that would be a task, that would be,
Mhm.
like, I would need to do that sort of as
Right.
a work thing, but it doesn't feel like a chore. Um, the biggest difference for me is noticing the difference when I'm making something that's purely for me, and this is about the intentions again,
Mhm.
purely for me as an artist. And I'm kind of I know with my heart that this is me being an artist, and I have an art studio, and I'm like, just walking upstairs to the studio makes a difference. There's a real, like, ritual about that,
Mhm.
compared to maybe making art for my own well-being and my
Mhm.
own sort of routine and mental health. So there's and I probably would say that, yeah, I do a lot of things in my sketchbook that might, like, do those mindful, like,
Mhm.
activities that you were talking about, and
Mhm.
I'm really aware that they could be standalone pieces, and I might never really look at them again, but then there's other pieces in my sketchbook where I look at and think, "I'm gonna do some paintings from that." It becomes a
Mhm.
series. So there's a bit of a blurry
Yeah,
boundary
I
with
can
it because
imagine.
it's all me and it's all everything's part of
Right. Right.
something coming from me, but then, I mean, I don't tend to make any art that's not me. I don't
Mhm.
particularly do, I mean, I keep thinking I'll start to do commissions and,
Mhm.
like, offer that out, but I have done commissions in the past, but it's never been anything where they've asked me to do something that's out of character to my style.
Right. Right.
They've not said, "Do it, make a portrait that's like, just like me," or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Something that's not in your
'Cause I
wheelhouse or
think
something you're interested in.
that I think would feel more like work. That would
Mhm.
jump me back to doing a
Mhm.
demonstration as a teacher.
Right. That makes
So,
sense. So what kind of
yeah.
modes of art are you using with your clients?
So, probably a bit of a mixture of sort of 2D with maybe some, like, bits of clay and things as well.
Mm.
Sometimes I do, like, have clients in person, sometimes clients are working online. So, when it's online, it's purely, like, what they feel inspired
Right.
to make.
Yep.
Sometimes people will use different found objects and nature. Other
Mhm.
times people will maybe lean more towards pastels or paint.
Mhm.
Um, I've worked with some people who, you know, for for a long time they were just wanting to use the same materials, but then after a while they might use chalk pastels and
Mhm.
then not really wanting to use anything else, but then yeah, they then go, Actually, I want to start using some paint now." And equally, I've had sessions where it's not really been about the art. This is one of the key things. It's not so much about what's been
Mhm.
made; it's about the materials. And
Yeah.
you could be pouring paint and pouring and mixing the water and making something messy, and then
Mhm.
the outcome gets thrown away.
Mhm.
So it's a real mix.
Yeah. I don't know what just made me think about this, but it's kind of making me giggle, so I have to tell you this story. So I wanted new kitchen chairs, but I wanted I knew exactly what I wanted, like an old style of wooden kitchen chairs, and I wanted to refinish them and paint them and like half paint, half stain. And so I found the set that I wanted. My husband and I drove 2 hours to get them. We brought them home, and I was like, and I love redoing furniture, but I hate his space. And it is his space because we're going to be divorced if I try to spend time out there. And so I was like, I'm going to strip these and I'm going to paint them and I'm going to stain them and I'm going to fish them and they're going to be so great. I'm so excited. I can't wait. We spent the first 2 hours out there stripping them. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this with you. I need you to strip these and let me know when they're done. And so he's out there stripping them now. I told him I would come out tonight now because it's been a while and I really want the chairs to be painted, but I don't want to do the front end. I only want to do the second. And he
Oh,
did let me
yeah.
know that this is the last time that this will happen because it might be a thing that I do regularly. I like you know what you enjoy. I don't like stripping the furniture, and I forgot that I don't like it until I get out there to do it. I don't like the sanding. I don't like the chemicals. I don't like any of that. But when it's time to finish it and put the paint on it and put the stain on it, and oh my gosh, that part feels so good. I love that so much.
Yeah. I hear you, I love that. I'm really good at starting stuff.
Yep.
So
Me too.
so I'd probably start the sandpaper and I'd start
Yep.
that and then I'd be get like, "Oh, no, I'm not into that
Yeah, I did
anymore."
all of the research. I knew exactly what I wanted to use to strip it, what kind of paint I wanted, what kind of finish I wanted. I had it all ready to go. We had all the stuff, and then I was like, "Yeah, I'm not really having a good time. Will you finish this for me?"
Yeah.
He didn't appreciate that, but he's doing it because he's a good guy.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's
So
good.
yeah, he tolerates. So do you have a favorite client story or a favorite, just an issue that you worked through that you felt really good about and that really resonated and would maybe sound
Mm.
something the audience would wanna hear about?
Yeah. I mean, one of the people that I've been working with fairly recently, when I first started to work with her, she would be really blocked and really struggle to talk about or feel any of her feelings that
Mhm,
like there was a bit of a narrative, and this is really common for a lot of people, a narrative of feeling that she can't talk about her emotions.
mhm,
And then like that sort of childhood kind of stance of like be good, behave, and
mhm,
if you're certain emotions are kind of seen as being terrible to be expressing, that you're not
mhm.
allowed to express any anger,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
a lot
Your
of people
discomfort makes me
repress.
uncomfortable, therefore you're not allowed to talk about it with me.
I think that's the case, isn't it?
Mhm,
That and a
yeah,
lot of people then repress their emotions, and that's when they might
mhm,
just rather than feeling that it just then suddenly explodes. So she would be really struggling to get started to make any of the art and not really know what to do. And but then over time she was able to actually like express things and like because I suppose there's a difference between making some art to go, "Hey, I made this pretty picture and it's just like lovely and perfect and the colours are all nice," compared to making something that's actually really holding on to that emotion and
mhm.
being able to say, actually, what I need right now is to actually express how I'm feeling instead of changing how I'm
Yes.
feeling. And
Yeah.
I think that's the type of client that I probably work with the most, that it's not about me coming along and they're feeling like this, and then I come along and work my magic, and
Mhm.
then they feel like more
They're all
empowered.
better.
It's not about that, it's more about witnessing
Uh-huh.
them being bolder in how they're expressing and allowing these feelings to come up.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, it's like if you're pushing down your sadness and your anger, you're also pushing down your joy and your gratitude and
Mhm.
all of those things. So
Yeah.
it does really feel good to be able to see and witness and, know that I've helped in some way, but
Mhm.
essentially they've done the work. I've, been there and
Mhm.
guided, but they've been the one that's done the work.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to sort of point out because you can you can get a lot out of making art
Mhm.
independently, but then
Mhm.
holding space for somebody
Yeah.
so
I
that they
imagine
can
that
do
can
the
be so
work.
powerful. And I also bet too that the outcome of the art that you're working on as those things are emerging, whether it looks good, or I'm saying in quotes, or not, I bet those pieces mean a lot more because the symbolism of that piece of art, that's something I would like. I love symbolism of things. And so that is something I would keep. Like I wouldn't be painting over that again because that I know
Mm,
what happened in that moment. And it's a reminder to me that I was able to grow through something. And maybe it wasn't comfortable and maybe it didn't result in this like immaculate piece of art, but it meant something and it was an opportunity for me to grow and become something new and different.
yeah, yeah. Like sometimes I'll ask people about, what do you think of your art and do you have any thoughts about it? Or if we're doing a review of some kind, then it's, what do you think it's been like to make this? And they might be saying, well, they don't really like it, but it's got
Mhm.
some meaning to it.
Mhm.
And they might end
Yeah.
up saying they wanna throw it away, and I'd encourage, "Well, why don't you take a photograph of it? You
Yeah.
can throw the actual piece away." 'Cause sometimes art becomes
Mhm.
really heavy
Mhm.
in you could be having a piece of paper or even
Yep.
cards more robust, and then it's almost like all the paint and water and the goo has just, like, soaked through. So it kinda has to be thrown in the bin. The number of paintings that I've had in my car that have been like that, but I've kept, and somehow I've managed to keep this is incredible. But encouraging someone to take a photograph of it so that then maybe a week later or even 6 months later, they can look at it and then look
Mhm.
back and say, "That's how I was feeling back then," and it's
Mhm.
amazing that I was able to capture that because I didn't have any words to describe it.
Right, right, and now I'm
So I
like, I've come out the other end, and what a good reminder.
Yeah. So having that image, it is like looking at a photograph. It is like
Yeah.
looking back, maybe reading back at a journal.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and I bet yeah, I
yeah.
bet the feeling, like, you can just sort of recreate the emotion that's behind it.
Mm,
I love that.
yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Anything else you wanna share with us?
I think it
No pressure.
I think that the main thing that sort of goes on for me is that, anybody can
Mm,
come up and do things for themselves and feel more empowered. And I have a framework called New Pace that is about, dealing with challenges, that taking time to pause, act, create, empower, that's the pace part.
mhm,
And there's times in my life where I've had to really almost feel like I've stopped here, like when I've had operations and things like that. And I
mhm,
felt really fed up and really like really down. And then actually when I've allowed myself to pause and started to recognize those small actions, I started to really appreciate those small things that I can do, whether it's just
mhm.
something like brushing your teeth or going around the
Yep.
block. And this is a framework that I've developed over time, having worked with loads and loads of people. But it is about recognizing that there is some hope. Like if you're really, really struggling, especially mental health, or there's been an emotional challenge, then it is where it's useful to take time to pause, but it doesn't mean that you have to be forced to stop.
Mhm,
So, yeah,
mhm.
I'm making
Yeah.
choices for you.
I
the
love that.
choices in creativity is really empowering.
Hmm. I think that's so great. So where can everyone find you?
So I have a website called
Mhm.
www.lesleyandrew.com, and I'd probably say the most of my sort of social content is on Instagram.
Uh-huh.
That's Lesley Andrew Art Therapist. I have a YouTube channel as well, but I think it's mostly Instagram or the website. But
Fantastic. I'll put all of those links in the notes as well.
brilliant. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, Lesley, thank you so much. I think this was fantastic. And I think that for everyone, at least for me, the takeaway is that it doesn't matter what it like we're not looking at the object at the end. We're looking at the opportunity to move through something. If so, just like other modalities, whether it's so like I do a lot of somatic modalities, like no matter what is the modality that you're using, it tends to not be comfortable. It tends to not be a good time sometimes when you're in the
Yeah.
moment. But coming out the other side of that is always, always so good.
Yeah. And being proud of the journey as well and
Yes.
really
I think that's
noticing
such a
that.
great point. Such a great point.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so
Thank
much. I really appreciate you.
thank you so much for having me on, join you. It's been a lovely conversation, and thanks everybody for listening.
This is one of those conversations I did not even know that I needed. And I think a lot of you listening are probably feeling the same way. Here's my takeaway and what I want you to sit with. The goal was never the painting. It was never the finished piece. It was the moment that you stopped editing yourself before you even got started. That is where regulation happens. That is where you get a little bit of yourself back. You can find Lesley at lesleyandrews.com and on Instagram at Lesley Andrew Art Therapist. I'll put everything in the show notes. My friend, if this episode landed for you, come find me on Substack. I wrote this week's essay about exactly what this conversation opened up, and it is free and waiting for you at substack.com/at Dr. Tanya Burfield. And if you are in a season where you are holding everything together and it is starting to cost you everything, my emotional ER session might be the right next thing. One session, one honest conversation, one prescription that is actually yours. You can book that at drtanyab.com/ER. New episodes of Mindset Medicine drop every Monday. Share this one with someone who needs permission to stop being so hard on herself. She is out there. You know her, and you probably know exactly what she needs and that she needs this. So send it to her. Until next week, I love you.